Evening, everyone. My name is E.R. Anderson. I'm the executive director of Charis Circle. Charis Circle is the nonprofit programming arm of Charis Books, and Charis Books is the South's oldest independent feminist bookstore. We are so very excited to be here tonight with Christopher Marmolejo in conversation with Alice Sparkly Cat for a discussion of Red Tarot, a decolonial guide to divinatory literacy. It is designed to be used with any deck, and it is a radical praxis and decolonialized oracle that moves beyond self-help and divination to reclaim tarot for liberation, self-determination, and collective healing. Red Tarot speaks to anyone othered by their identity or ways of being or thinking. LGBTQIA2 Spirit Plus and BIPOC folks in particular, presenting the tarot as a radical epistemology that shifts the authority of knowing into the hands of the people themselves. So we're really, really excited to have this conversation. Y'all may or may not know that Alice Sparkly Cat is published on the same press as Christopher. And so it's always cool. This doesn't actually happen very often, but it's really cool to get press mates on the same conversation. So when we saw Christopher's book was being published, we were like, oh, we should invite Alice Sparkly Cat, who is one of our absolute faves. Alice is an astrologer. Their goal is to bring reconstruction and historicism back into astrology and to bring mysticism back into storytelling. Their astrological work has inhabited MoMA, Philadelphia Museum of Art, and the Brooklyn Museum. They're the author of Post-Colonial Astrology, which came out May 2021, and their website is alicesparklycat.com. We will be dropping links to Post-Colonial Astrology. If somehow that book missed you, we understand because 2021 was a very busy, hard year for many people, but it's an incredible book. It's a book that Charis continues to sell so many copies of. It's really become a touchstone for so many people. And I think we could not imagine a better companion to Red Tarot. So that's why I'm super excited about this conversation. It's almost, I want these to be like a set for people to carry forward, because I really think these are two sides of a coin in some ways. And Christopher, their book there is exploring a different aspect, right? So Christopher is a brown, queer, and trans writer, diviner, and educator. They use divination to promote a literacy of liberation. They are the author of the book we're celebrating tonight, Red Tarot, a Decolonial Guide to Divinatory Literacy, which is published by North Atlantic Books. They were born and raised in San Bernardino, California, among the pines in community with the Serrano people. With 9+ years of experience as a trained educator focused on cultivating classrooms of emancipatory possibility, they work with students around the world to plant and nurture the seed of a divinatory practice, finally weaving tarot, astrology, and currendismo with critical, decolonial, Black, queer, feminist epistemology. They are available for readings, and they are enrolling students in ongoing divination classes at thereddread.com. You can also follow them on Substack at The Red Dread for more writing. So I'll be dropping those links in the chat. But we want to get right into it. So I want folks to know that you can ask questions at any time. You can drop them in the chat, and I'll move them over to the Q&A box, especially if you're on your phone. Sometimes it's easier to just put stuff directly in the chat, or you can put it directly in the Q&A box, which is on the far right. Little question mark, looks like the Joker icon. If you see a question that someone has asked that is similar to what you would like to ask, you can upvote that question so that we can avoid redundancy and have as many questions as possible brought into the space. So without further ado, thank you both so much for being here. We're really, really excited to have this really special celebration and conversation.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Woo!
Yes. I'm like, let me hold it. Can we hold them up both? Like, come on, two sides of the coin. Like,
it's really nice. Yeah, it has a really great feel to it too. Yeah.
I think it's a heft. There's a heft.
Yeah, there is. Yeah. How do you feel now? Out. It's been a few days.
Oh, I feel like I can breathe again. Like I can kind of settle. I was a bit just I didn't have a lot of space around me to kind of process and whatnot. But it's like, no, it's getting into people's hands. People are messaging me, and I've so far gotten great warm feedback, and so I hope that that obviously that continues, but also that people like work and sit with it and get into it, and get real red, get red.
Yeah, I forgot like red, like it's a pun too. There's a pun in it. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
completely.
It probably took you like because the research in it is so deep. Like, like you get into like I feel like every paragraph there's like something else that I want to look up, read more. Like there's so many portals in the entire
Mm.
so it must have taken you just a lot of research and then work to do. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very I mean, the kind of the goal or the thesis was to marry very critical Black feminists, like decolonial thinkers to the cards, and that was informed by my own practice naturally of like how I kind of like turn to these texts. Like I just pull my daily spread and then would like read something and I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's the read for the
Mhm.
card, or like that's exactly the expression of it. And so yeah, it forced me to be stationary, certainly a bit, to just kind of have my texts around me, you know what I mean? And I'm sure um, and just like carry my book haul like to me to the coffee with me to the coffee shop or something. Um, but yeah, I wanted it to, I think that is necessary in naming my text decolonial. As I'm sure you know, like that's not a there's a discipline and there's a rigor. I think that's required in order to kind of venture into that territory with something. Also with tarot, which has its own rich history. Um, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I hope, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. You went there. It's like, yeah. Yeah. Like, it's like when you explore a concept, you explore the whole concept. Like I can see that with each card that you explore. Yeah. I'd love
Mm,
to hear about like, how you got into tarot and whether like because like I feel like each card is explored in such a deep way, like whether you've seen your practice change while you were writing at all.
That's so. Like, are you saying that like, while reading it, you can see my practice changing, or are you asking if that was the
Oh,
case?
asking.
Okay. Okay. Well, I mean, definitely writing it further developed and like refined, I would say, my practice. But at the same time, I think that a tarot divinatory practice is something that uh, is prismatic, or there's like you get a new deck, um
Yeah.
and then like a new aspect of the card shows up, or there's like a new expression or a new valence. Like they're going to be we're constantly living our lives, so we're adding like recording new layers of kind of experience and application. And so I think that that's um something to kind of be mindful of. And at the same time, the cards have like a tone, a resonant tone, or some thread that can ring true, you know what I mean? And that can like um still kind of hit or apply to the situation, or at least give a depth of consideration beyond simply the like maybe mundane daily time, like in the moment that you're pulling that card or that spread. And so yeah, I think that my reading practice, if you will, and like this being a project of literacy, comes from Mercury being the bound lord of my midheaven, of my sun and my moon. I was an English teacher, and I taught like officially, like was officially seventh and eighth grade English teacher during my Jupiter return. And Jupiter, like kind of also that year is when I really got serious as well with like learning the tarot and
Wow.
getting into divination, and like started listening to the astrology podcast. And so it wasn't married yet. Do you know what I mean? Like there wasn't like the interweaving, but it was like the public kind of thing. And then
Mhm.
COVID happened and everything. And then I kind of began that process of like merging the two. And like, if to me, it feels very like I mean, I do have Saturn, who's in Aquarius on the top of my chart in Antisha with Mercury. So there's something of like I think Mercury wanting me to be like, you're not done with like yes, you are a reader and a writer and like you've known all these things, but like there's a divinatory element to these things as well that needs to be expressed and articulated.
Dang,
Yeah.
that makes so much sense, because I feel like when I was reading it, I was like, oh, like these concepts go together, and I feel like you're showing us how to unpack them and then how they already go together. Like, so it wasn't like you got into tarot and then like started deconstructing it after using like you got like you were into teaching and then you were into tarot at the same time, like,
Mm.
and that makes sense. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, and I think that that kind of study that I've had, I mean, knowing the kind of canon of Black feminist thought, of decolonial thought and whatnot that I kind of was studied in and like come from, um, that's just what I would read in response to like certain decks and whatnot. And like, yeah, and I still think that there's still a paucity of texts that are pairing them together. So hopefully this is a contribution to people kind of realizing that there are people who are prophets, but maybe not in the sense that we are thinking of them in the manner of like being this court astrologer or something or whatnot. You know what I mean? That there's like a different generation who is thinking about liberation in the future and kind of how to engage them with
Yeah.
like a literal concrete divinatory tool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
I think, yeah, it's a significant contribution. And then, yeah, and I think people are going to be using this book for, I mean, forever. Yeah. Like one of the things that I really love about it is like, I feel like anyone can use it. It's like,
Mm.
yeah, like whether you're like, hey, I'm really attached to this deck that my friend got for me, or I'm just open. I don't use like a deck of cards, but I look for things that come up. If the Empress comes up in my conversations more often, that kind of thing. Like I feel like anyone can use it. And then so I ran into that section where you're like, this is malleable magic. And then yeah,
Mm.
like I was just like, oh, I love the idea of tarot being like this like soft malleable magic too. And then yeah, I was just thinking like I wonder when you were writing it if you were like imagining people using the book, using red tarot like in any like particular ways, if there's like any visions that you have as the writer.
I mean, I've been already had feedback that people are doing like bibliomancy with the book itself, which is like I never considered that actually, and so that's kind of blowing me away. And like I don't know why I didn't, but it's like it feels very very meta in a sense and like very complimentary. I envisioned, it's also structured not from like an A to Z, like here's all the major arcana cards, here's like each of the suits, like one by one. You're kind of like in each chapter getting a mix, right? You're getting the major, you're getting some core, and then some minor arcana. So that for me, that's more comprehensive and also more so mirroring, though there is a structure that like we don't actually read tarot from A to Z. We read it chaotically, like we read it in like what the cards that come up. Right now, everyone's like, and now I'm getting now, that may inform the reading, but like it's again not actually how our reading is done. So I thought that the structure kind of more closely mirrors that. And so I figured that people would like get it in turn and use it hopefully as like a guidebook in a sense, like in relation to their daily reads. And then at the same time, if people do read it kind of from like front, like linearly, we'll also get something out of it there as well, because I kind of there, I do some sharing of myself. It's like there's moments of like memoir-esque, like personal disclosure that I interweave throughout. I think they are maybe a clearer vision of like, again, the thesis that I was trying to realize in going from like beginning to end. And at the same time, I love the chaos of like going in and out and like, and going wherever you feel called to, or like turning open to a section. And it's cool you mentioned the Empress, because I quote you in the Empress and post-colonial astrology and your thoughts on Venus and like the garden and the state. And so I love it. Yeah, that yeah, absolutely.
Wow, yeah. I can see using it for bibliomancy. I'm gonna do that now.
Oh, please, I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like yeah, I noticed that you like cuz like I got used to seeing the major arcana like organized like first and then the minor like after and then always like in suits in different tarot books I've come across. And that, yeah, I noticed that like in red tarot it's like you organize it by number, but then the major arcana they're kind of dispersed at the beginning of
Hmm.
section by number. And then so I was wondering, like, because I was noticing, like, Hierophant, that's Taurus, Lovers in 6 is Gemini, the Chariot in 7 is Cancer. So it seems like there's some order to how you were organizing. And I couldn't piece it together. So I was wondering, yeah, how you got to the structure. And then, yeah. Yeah.
There's I mean, well, Mary K. Greer, I believe, has the like teacher cards, which is like if you distill the numbers down, so it's not like. But I kind of went with the base, like so if it's like well, and a little bit in for the ones it's but like from the magician to the wheel of fortune. There's like the one and then there's the 10. There's like this personal and then there's the collective, or the hierophant being 5. And then the minor arcana 5s, which are hard cards, like those are like really like a divot, if you will, like in a journey. And then to the devil, 15. And so like those two are very clearly to me, like in conversation, you have a pope and a devil, clearly, right, in a sense. And then you have these experiences of like exile and the minor arcana and whatnot. And so like how do the minor arcana comment the numerics? It's very much organized numerically. Primarily, but rather than again that kind of America Greer, I wanted to do something new
Mhm.
in ordering by kind of like the base, if you will, and then like maybe at another octave or another level, and then kind of enfolding the court as appropriate. Like when in the Empress chapter, let's talk about the queens. In the Emperor chapter, let's talk about the kings. Like in the Chariot chapter, let's talk about the knights. And then
Mhm.
the pages, the spirit of beginning.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Dang, okay, that makes sense. That's what I felt like it's not just like like a manual where you're like I drew a card down and looking at like the book has a narrative structure and
Mm.
like to its theory too was what I was feeling. And then because like you start with the magician and then you go to the fool too. Like that seems very cool.
Yeah, I wanted to. I know there's so many tarot texts kind of being always published, right? And again, I think that that's maybe a taken for granted thing of the structure of like let's talk through zero through the world and then like each of the suits. But it also I think maintained uh like it helped me think freshly about them, going from like high priestess to justice. Those two are very much like threshold dwellers, one over death, one over like heaven, or like from hell to heaven, like these gatekeepers,
Yeah.
these reflections of each other. And then the two aspect with like the hanged one going into like sacrifice, and maybe that person is like caught, or that figure is caught in the middle, stuck in the middle in some sense, like paying, this whole thing, and then kind of judgment again with like 20. So kind of this other end with rebirth and some stuck in between, like coming from below and rising above. So there's almost like an inversion from the hanged man to the imagery we see within judgment,
Mhm.
um,
Mm. Yeah.
and whatnot. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It feels like yeah, it feels like you like the way that you organized it, and then it's like the way that like because I think like each section on each card feels like it's full of lessons too. Yeah, like I feel like you're a teacher.
Ah.
Yeah, I feel that. And then so I feel like someone who's maybe like new to tarot and then like not so well versed on what the difference between major and minor might be, like can still get something out of the book too.
Hmm. Yeah, I had that like you, but kind of back to that kind of audience or reader question. That was something that was challenging, because I knew there would be advanced practitioners, I knew there'd be astrologers, I knew there'd be tarot enthusiasts, and then I also knew that there would be new people, and at the same time I wanted it to be um maybe people who had an interest in like decolonization and not divination exactly, and like how to bring them over, and then introduce people who are into divination into some decolonial theory and whatnot, and like praxis. um it was what I love about your work and your book is like how in depth you do go with each of the planets, and like like that. The helpful thing about the structure with the tarot was like, I know I have to write about every card. You know what I mean? Like I know that there's like the structure is there, and like got to talk about them all. And so yeah, and I mean some of them have felt hard to kind of within the limitation of the structure as well, though. On that other end, like I was like, oh, I don't have
Yeah.
all these weeks to just write about this like one kind of like archetype or card. I have to like keep going. 78 of them is quite a bit. But then it also at the same time it felt like in the composition something like I can like save space for an idea or something and like find it in its articulation like in development at a later point. And so I mean I'm curious how you felt about like structuring your book like in like the space of writing about each of the planets like in the way that you did. Like
I mean, there's only 7 planets in astrology. There's how many cards are there in 78?
yeah, 78.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that's 10 times, more than 10 times. Yeah. Were there any cards where you're like, what, like when you first started writing about them, you're like, oh, I want to change this card into something else almost, or um, yeah, did you move any sections from one card to another?
that's that's a good question. I mean, I think that like I also have, I work with like the decans for sure, and there's like the decan, not only the major astrological syncretization, but like the decans to the minor arcana. And of course, like decans are this like own narrative, right? Within like three of the two of swords, three of swords, four of swords, are like the Libra decans.
Mhm.
Um, and so there was a bit of that where maybe I was like, okay, I can pick this up in the next chapter in like the next decan of this kind of card or whatnot, or like go further explore that there. Um, and there was somewhere I was like, oh, this could apply maybe here or whatnot. Like I'm thinking of the kings kind of in particular and like the emperor and whatnot. And I was like, okay, like it was hard to kind of give myself grace with like addressing things fully and like where they would go.
Mm.
But some were very clear. And I mean, I think like in terms of like for me, the Two of Wands, and I think about that card often with Argentinian feminist Maria Lugones, who talks about world traveling and like loving perception and like the difference against arrogant perception, which tourist settlers typically have when world traveling. It's like seeing the world as a model of their own, or like in their own hands, in their own creation. And that figure typically is at like this horizon point, like they're at a threshold in terms of like about to enter into some unknown, right? And that just to me, like that one has always been like Maria, like when Maria Lugones is writing, I'm like Two of Wands, like it was just like buzzing in my head, and that was often the case with like pairing some of these things. I was like, oh, like just my little annotation in my books of like Four of Swords or like King of Wands or something. Like I was like, this is so that, and like kind of going about it in that way.
Yeah, like it's like like you know the text, you know the card, and then yeah, yeah, and then it
Yeah.
just bring bring them together. Yeah. I mean, I used the book this morning because I did a draw, and then I was thinking about my grandpa, and then so I drew Justice. So it was this card I have,
Mm.
and then Justice, and then when I was reading it, I was like, okay, yeah, because I think like the end of that section on justice, you're talking about the importance of bringing love together with justice. And then, I mean, like, I know that when you were writing that, you weren't like, oh, Ace is gonna do a reading about their family member or anything like that. But like, it really spoke to me. It really resonated with me.
Mm,
So
yeah.
I was wondering, when you were writing about the cards, if you saw them show up, like whether you're pulling cards or just in your life in some way. If I mean, yeah, if the writing itself was kind of divinatory, where you kind of run into what
Mm-mm.
you're writing about. Yeah.
That's super cool. That's such a great question. I find that when I teach, because I have I taught tarot courses, and I will see, as we're focusing on certain cards, that it will constellate, or like it will definitely show up.
Yeah.
Um, there was there was that, and almost, but it was also because I had the structure already laid in. I had the outlet. I was like, okay, here's all, like, even if I hadn't gotten to that section yet, when I would, it was more so filling it in, as through my lived experience of like pulling them, like, whilst writing it. So like I may not have been actively working on a certain section, but I would pull maybe like the Two of Wands or something, and then have an insight come in, or have a lived experience I would add to it, and then I would like bookmark it, or like dog ear it there, or add notes to that section. That became harder as I obviously like finished, became closer to finishing and whatnot. And but there was times where like certain insights or like epiphanies of sorts would come, and I was like, oh, I have to work this in somehow. I have to edit this a bit then to like incorporate that kind of consideration.
Yeah.
Um, but I think for the most, like, justice and love. I mean, I think that that's like one, and Venus is the ruler of that card, if you will, right? Like that's Libra there. And so, um, yeah, I think that, that's very significant. And the fact that that could apply to, your own family members, and your consideration of like what justice looks like in that situation. And like, for me, when justice comes up, I'm always like, with a client or something, I'm like, what is your justice? Like what is justice for you in the situation? Like what would justice look like for you? Like what would that be?
Yeah.
And yeah, it kind of gets more, I mean, to beauty and those considerations for sure. And then I wanted to obviously bring in like a consideration of the language,
Mhm.
obviously, of justice, how that's been used to exclude Native peoples from a political apparatus, and making, sovereign decision making. Um, well, then in another section, like in particular in the tower, how we're dealing with violence, and that's such an obvious constant consideration, and like where there's challenge and tension there and whatnot. So I also felt, as I was writing, like the bomb, or the evocation, or the confrontation with certain, like the cards were like confronting me, and some of them were like sweeter, like, or whatnot, or there was like a warmer embrace, and then some I was like really confronted by, like sitting and like trying to speak to.
Yeah. Yeah. Some of them jumped out at you. Some of them jumped out at you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Which ones?
Definitely. I mean, definitely the tower for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely the tower. Definitely the devil.
Mm.
I would say the eight. I would say a lot of the hard cards, the Eight of Swords, the Two of Cups on the other end, and the Lovers were like confronting, because
Yeah.
I'm a yearner. I'm a lover. I'm looking for love. I'm looking for love. Okay, just to
Yeah.
put it out there. And like there was, yeah, some of it. Sometimes it was confronting in like trying to maintain obviously a cogent voice, but at the same time go from being more like sharp and pointed, and like critiquing and critical, to the language of like, because the tarot is not one voice. The tarot is multivocal. It's like multivalent, and there's people use it in love readings, like probably foremost, right? And so, how to kind of get to the poetic, and also like self-disclosing enough, like offering up enough of um my own passions, if you will, that can enliven that section as well. And sometimes that shift of range, or like register was also challenging for sure, you know.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
I think the hardest thing about, like, yeah, kind of writing about justice, injustice, and then it's like Like, and then divination is that people use it in so many different ways. Like someone might be like, okay, like I'm asking a question about when the revolution will come. And then someone else might be like, well, my crush texts me back. But I think that, I mean, yeah, I think that Red Tarot does such a good job of like just kind of reminding us that like even when our questions seem a little bit smaller, that there's big questions like hidden in them too.
Mm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I want obviously to give a greater regard, I think, than maybe people give to tarot in variety even if they do give a great regard to tarot, they're like deep within it, but maybe they're not like extending that internal exploration towards like like a social historical awareness, right? And like how those are formed and like I was rereading your Jupiter section and it was just like I've been told by an astrologer, like, maybe I won't be married in this lifetime and whatnot, and then reading your section on, marriage as a Jupiterian institution that, like, legitimizes sexual violence, was, like is mind-blowing and also gave, like, a different way of approaching that part of the divination for me, and I was like, "Oh," like, there was a relief there and also, like, the tangibility of like again the malleability, but it's like in order for it to be malleable, it has to give you something to work with,
Mhm.
and like
Yeah. Yeah. Because I feel like people think about, I mean, important things when they go through everyday situations, even like, am I going to get married? It's like, am I going to be trapped? Like all this stuff. And then
mhm,
it's like, what is justice for me? Like, what is justice in the world? Like, it comes up too.
mm,
Yeah. Tangible. Yeah.
mm.
Were there any cards that you wrote and then you're like, I gotta redo this completely and then like just edited too?
Oh my gosh, completely. um Through the process of writing it, like by the end I was like in the pocket, if you will, like I felt really like refined with my process and just like what I was doing and like the vision. And so I finished and I was like, oh, relief, like 78 cards done, like weight off my shoulder, whatnot. Like I'll send it to my editor. And then like I reread, I was rereading it and I reread chapter 1 and like 2. And I was like, did I get a book deal with this kind of writing? Like, what is this, Chris? And I was like, I have to redo these sections. And so I went back to them and like definitely I rewrote those chapters a bit and like kind of really beefed them up, if you will. So there's a bit of that. Yeah.
What is that? Like, because that means that your writing improved throughout the process.
I think so. I think so. I hope so. I mean, that's definitely the sense that I felt personally. Maybe the readers will also agree. They're like, this gets better as you go along. Um, but yeah, and I was like, ooh, they were not like they're like it was like lopsided. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, yeah. I- How do you feel? I mean, I'm curious, like how you feel that divination, like centering divination in your own writing like like where the challenge with that is and how that sustains your own writing practice like in like how was it for you like having that as a like the object of meditation for a book like even just as a writer like aside from like all the other brilliant things you do.
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know if you've ever like drawn cards like to write something and
Hmm.
then I sometimes do it, but I actually feel like sometimes like I'm too influenced by like a card I drew or I do I Ching, so like a hexagram I pulled in the writing. I'm like, okay, like I feel like there's people trying to talk to me like through these things.
Mm,
Like, well,
mm,
this is my writing too, a little
mm,
bit. There's that push and pull. I don't know if you.
mm.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
completely,
Mhm.
definitely spirits moving through. Vi-
Yeah.
like vying for the mic, they're like let me get the mic, kind of a thing.
Right. Yeah, the tower kept jumping out to you. Did you ever tell it to be like, no, like I'm writing this, like this is my.
That's a good. You know what? No, honestly, I was so submissive. I was so like sub I was so submissive. I was like, go ahead, like you whip me more. Like, what do you want? What do you say? Um, that's really, I was really let them have their way with me. Um,
That's nice.
there was there was parts where I had I was like, okay, they made space for me, I think, in terms of like parts that I just wanted to take the opportunity of being able to be published, which is rare, still an opportunity, of course, and um to kind of just to put myself in it, as much as possible, and yet at the same time, um I felt like I needed some like spirit. I am a devotee of the Black Madonna, I will say and whatnot, but I use the phrase like I was like, I get it now why people are like, oh, you need a Holy Spirit. It's like this was like I was like, oh, you need some additional like extra kind of oomph to like do the thing and like get it all done in time, because there was parts where I was like my wrists were aching and I was just like, you know what I mean? Like the revision, I was like having meltdowns because I just like the capacity to like focus on the whole thing was so challenging. So it was more like they also helped me like get it done too, So,
Yeah. They gave you energy for your wrists, a little.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
So my next question is like, one thing that really draws me to what you do is like, I like how you describe prophecy as a literary activity. It's a like literature is prophecy. And then I was just wondering what your writing journey has been like. Were you always writing? Like what were the steps to like kind of learn how to do it? And then do you write other things too?
I've like written a short story once, like one time. I have like one short story. It's not published or anything, but like it's like in a little treasure chest. I would like to write more. I want to write all the things. Like I want to be across genres for sure, but like always at my heart of like my writerly self has been like as an essayist and whatnot, nonfiction kind of essayist and whatnot. I've written poetry, for sure. I love poetry, and hopefully there's like a bit of poetic verse in here. As I was doing the audiobook, I was like, when I was reading it aloud, I heard the musicality in some of the sentence construction that I wasn't as aware of, like as I was just writing it. I was like, hey, I got a bar there. But and the writing, I mean, it's been very gradual of like ability, and I don't know about you, but I was like, in terms of like, I feel like my education really trained me well, especially like again in essayist. Like it is academic. Obviously, it's an academic format, but I love it. Like there's a part of it that I love the voice that comes through. I love the exploration and the ability to work on an idea, to work on some historical moment, on language itself, and it was just been from writing essays and like when I got my master's, and I like that was like 30 some pages, and so I was like I could write a book. Like after having that experience, I was like, oh, okay, from this kind of experience, like I could do this. Like I could just understand like the process of like just making this longer and like coming to a full book. And I think that's a great question, because I know many people like have the aspiration to write a book, but like the hard part is the writing of it, right? And like the formatting and like seeing it all the way through. How'd you feel about your book and like writing? Like, did you always knew you'd be like have the capacity to write a book, or like venture into other forms of writing beforehand? Or
I was doing fan fiction before doing astrological writing. But I was this because I had like a astrology reading maybe last week, I think it was, and then during it I just realized, oh my god, like my grandparents didn't know how to read until they were like full adults, and then my parents know how to read, and then I'm like I don't know how to read Chinese. I can read English, so then it's not that much like it's new, and then so it just like it feels a different way to be like I got a book out, like it has a different feeling too.
I think that's it does have a different feeling. There is something different than like, oh, I published an essay that may has also been hard to work on and like like something we're proud of, but like um the artifact of like a book as a technology, I think is so rich, and especially for people who have immigrant backgrounds or for whatever reason were barred from access to education. Um, that's such a huge marker, and that's something that like that goes into the banning of literacy for the enslaved. You could not read the Bible, prophetic word, quote unquote, right on your own. You had to have it translated or dictated to you. And so, what does it mean when we can read and write for ourselves? And unfortunately, in a language maybe that is distant from our mother tongue, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's rich. Yeah.
Yeah. But even then, it's like a new superpower or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Hell yeah. Hell yeah, it is.
It is necessary, right? Yeah. But question: what tarot decks do you use, and then which
Yeah.
right now? Yeah, I won't ask you your favorite, like overall, because I feel like that's too hard.
That is so hard. That is so hard. I have like a whole lot. I have like over 100 tarot decks. I will say. I know. But I like for me, it's also an art. It's like art collecting as well. You know what I mean? And that's also something there. And so like what I love about tarot is like I actually get to work with like art and some like really beautiful and brilliant art from like various artists to talk to people about and like do so more than maybe just like being in a gallery or something. And like in doing that, it's like we're doing this like of the people kind of a gallery, but like still with like some rich art. I often use the mahogany tarot for like teaching, and it's like it's all burnt up, but by Kashira Hickson, and it's just like a melanated version of the Rider Waite, and so I really love that for teaching. I love the Terra Volatile tarot. It's so rich. Their art making is like really expansive, and it just feels very evocative. I love the tarot Yohoali Hekal, which is like a Mesoamerican deck, and like I also the Chikomi Amatlapatli I felt also made such a contribution in like making the Mesoamerican deities like syncretized to some of the tarot cards and like provide like doing that work. So I really do love that deck. A fun one is like the Afro Avatar Tarot, because I'm a big Avatar: The Last Airbender fan. This one's really fun and cute, and I like we're using it like if I'm reading for like kids or something, you know what I mean? And actually knowing um the narrative of Avatar a lot like is actually really tied really well to the internal structure of the tarot, but also like it's a whole other kind of reading when I read with this deck, because like having that narrative background kind of informs some of the dynamics that might be present for the client in that reading. And then lastly, one of my favorites for sure is the Black Madonna Tarot. Because like as I've mentioned, I'm like a devotee of the Black Madonna. And this is more like ritual artwork, kind of relation. It's very gorgeous. And so those are some of my top ones right now for sure. Those are probably some of my most used ones that I go back to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you cards. Yeah, wait. So you were kids too? You read for kids, children too? Yeah.
I have. I like it. I love when like I feel like it's like got to be some kind of Scorpio kid or something, because like that just draw to the occult, is like there, like they're like, what is that? What are you doing? You know what I mean? Like, what is going on over there?
Yeah.
I read for one recently, and like actually, funnily enough, Justice came up as like a guiding card, and it was great. It was so fantastic. Like it was just really great, and they were there like open, but also like the kids have a critical eye, you know what I mean? Like they're like, "What's up with the shits? Like, what are you saying to me right now? Like, what is happening?" And um, it was really great. And it was really fantastic. And so I love when kids are like drawn to it and being able to talk with them about
Yeah.
like it's very cool. It's a really cool process for sure. And I mean, I would love to do more of that because my background comes from working with kids, but I know that that's like parents have maybe parents have issues with the tarot and whatnot. So, you know.
There's always that. Yeah. I'm so curious what questions kids ask, because I don't work with kids. I'm like,
Mm.
what might they be asking about?
They're like, I mean, somewhat similar. I mean, they're like, what's
Right.
like what's in the future? You know what I mean? Kind of a thing, or like,
Yeah.
yeah, or whatnot. And yeah.
All right. So I see a question in the chat, and then From Tai Lu, they're asking, what are both of your favorite tools for divination?
Hmm.
That's a good question.
I mean, I feel like you should go first, Ace. Like, you go ahead.
I've been into the eating recently. Yeah, so I've been using it, but like okay, I'm like it's really bad, but I vape and then yeah, it's like, you know, my vape was broken one day
Mm.
and so I was just like I just asked the eating what to do about it. Like is it going to start working again or do I need to replace it? And then like I'm not even kidding, but I got the hexagram 18, which is poison, changed to eliminate. So it was just like, I don't care that your vape's broken. Like you need to eliminate the poison in your life. Like stop vaping. And then yeah, I've gotten answers where it's like, you know, hexagram 4, which is that's the eating fuck off mode. It's like, don't ask me. Like your question's not worth it. So I don't know. I like the tone of it. Like I
Yeah,
enjoy it. Yeah. That's my
I
favorite.
love. I want to get more into that. I know that Benabel's book and work on it just came out as well, and so that's en route to me. Um, yeah, because I love that each divination tool definitely speaks in its own. It has its own voice, and like, and even that where it's like I talk about that in the book too, but just like sometimes you'll lay a spread and the cards don't give a fuck what the position is supposed to mean. They're just like, we're gonna tell you what's up. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're gonna tell you what's going on. Like, we're just gonna read you. Like, you just need to listen or like do what you will. And so I mean, I definitely use tarot probably most centrally. Also an astrologer. I love what is it? I forget the term off the top of my head, but bird watching, like divination by birds. Um, I forget what that term is called, but like, but I love birds. Not to be like I just love like noting. I'm like, oh my gosh, a hawk is in the sky, or like, oh, like I'm like, ooh, what are they doing over there? It's like, yeah, I just love that. In particular.
Yeah, I never heard of that one. Yeah, you watch for birds and like how do you divine with the birds?
I think, there's the type of bird that appears, the number of them, and then their flight motion and
Okay,
whatnot.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish I knew smoke reading too. Like, I want to learn it. I found out recently that my great grandfather went missing, and then he was found through a shaman using smoke reading.
Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah,
I
it's so wild because like his mother-in-law like walked through and then didn't say a word, and the shaman's like light some incense, and then she did, and then she's like, "Is it your son or son-in-law?" And then yeah, she's like son-in-law, and then so like she knew the age of the person, and then
mm.
she was like, yeah, and like go north. No, she's like, it's very dangerous, but go north and then look for this guy with the white beard. And then they didn't do it, but then they just like ended up finding the guy with the white beard, and then he found him. So,
That's amazing. That's freaking fantastic. I love
so
that story. I love that. I do a lot of, actually, I didn't think about this maybe as direct, but like candle divination too as well. I do that all the time. Yeah, like reading the glass, like reading the flame. I do that often for sure.
is the flame in the smoke, or is it the wax too?
The what do you like, the glass, like the if it like how clear or not the
Oh,
glass itself is, and then yeah, you're reading the flame, like how strong the flame is, if it's in a candle. And then also I do like white fire limpias from like curanderismo practices, in which you can ask the flame itself questions, and like the position that it's burning in and like the intensity and whatnot definitely is its own divination. I love fire divination for sure as well too.
fire's alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, let them play.
We have another question from Light and Leaf, and they're asking, do you both have your own planet or card planet correspondences? Because the Golden Dawn correspondences don't really resonate with me and the deck I use. Ooh, great question. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I gotta leave that one to you, Christopher, because I know a little about tarot. I've never heard of the Golden Dawn correspondence.
Okay, yeah. There I do work with the Golden Dawn Correspondences, which was the English Society with like Pamela Coleman Smith and that whole camp who made it intentional to pair them, and then there's I think that they are similarly corresponded with Aleister Crowley as well, like it's like the same syncretization. I have one deck that does fixed star correspondences, which I really love that deck as well. It's like it's hits, and there's the decanic correspondences shift a bit there as well. Um, and I think that maybe makes sense at first. Like I think like depending on how long you've been working with that deck, or maybe that's just not the deck for them, where they're like, yeah, we have our own, things that we're relating to. But that Golden Dawn kind of correspondence definitely did inform my how I think about tarot, how I wrote about tarot, even if it's like maybe not the most explicit thing, like it's kind of baked in there. So maybe if like hopefully a section open opens you a little bit more to like thinking about them in concert. um I personally like a challenge sometimes, you know what I mean? Like I like things where I'm like I have to figure them out, or I got to tinker with them a little bit. Some are maybe more obvious, and then maybe like Cancer and the Chariot I feel like maybe confuses people sometimes. They're
Yeah.
like their association of Cancer, but I'm like, but the moon goddess Selene would ride her it wasn't just a solar chariot, there was a lunar chariot as well, you know what I mean? And that kind of comes into play for sure. And then like also Cancer and like how it's configured in the US, I feel like can get very nationalistic, or very like it can very like in and out, kind of a thing that like the militaristic person kind of speaks to in another way. um
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, yeah. Cheers, like career. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
um So yeah, but yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I would use those, and again, I have decks where it's like if the deck gives me its own um specific correspondences for that deck, then I will work with that one. But like typically I do use the Golden Dawn. So yeah.
Yeah, because you're also an astrologer. So then,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And I will say, because that's also cool knowing like I've been saying lately that like cards are like cast iron skillets. Like they just get texture and like flavor like the more that you use them. Like it's like an additive process for me.
Yeah.
And so I'll pull like the Empress on like Venus Day or something, or I'll pull like Pisces, like I'll pull a Pisces card like when a Pisces transit is happening, or like where the moon, it's like the cards will also inform me about the astrology happening as well. And I think that's really cool.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I'm gonna do another poll and then look at what Red Tarot says about it for Venus and Pisces today.
Ah, yes.
We have a question from Lindsay Kuhn, and then they're asking, how did you both navigate pressures of colonialism and white supremacy culture, such as urgency and grind culture, in writing and promoting your books? And that it appears like a lot of pressure is put on authors. It's a good question. Yeah.
Question. I would say so. I mean, yeah, totally. I mean, writing is hard for me at least. Like writing is like hard work. Like it's real work. There's a devotional quality I think that I very much have, and at the same time I'm a very intense individual. I have like a lot of Scorpio and stuff in my chart, a lot of fixed energy in my chart, and so there's a level of like seeing it through, and I think that like just the rigor that can be a hard thing, because um I think your work, quote unquote, if you will, like me, or like your contribution, or like if you believe that you have this reason of incarnation and like some motive to be here, it might not be to like that might look in different ways, but for me, I'm like my work is going to require work, and that's like holding that as distinct from capitalism and like white supremacy culture, absolutely. And that's something I work with, because at the other end, like um you know there is a lot of grace as well, like being quote unquote an intellectual. Like I'm not a land laborer. You know what I mean? Like I'm not like doing maybe backbending work. I may be like staring at a screen for hours and hours and like reading and like becoming dehydrated and whatnot. But um there's still some ease afforded, and there's still like a level of appreciation that I have with it. Um I think that I don't like I've gotten more in tune with my body's cues. Like when my body is like you're tired, like you need to take a nap or you need to eat or you need to just like close the screen or like turn it off, like and heeding that more immediately um has allowed me to then like replenish my energy and then and then go for the hours that I will go working and researching and writing and refining and editing, you know. How is it for you, Ace?
Yeah, I like work too. I like work too. And then, yeah, I mean, I like writing and then it feels like work. I would agree. Yeah, I don't know. I've been doing a lot of like family like research, and then I found out like my family were like peasant farmers, but then they were really lazy and then like didn't really farm too. And then yes, and then they really just wanted to like tell stories. So yeah, it's work.
Mm,
Yeah. Um, I feel like with white supremacy, like I don't know, I think of writing as a service I provide other people, and then I don't really write about myself. So that's maybe one thing that I think about with just writing in the conditions that we do.
mm,
So yeah.
mm.
Yeah.
Would you ever like write about yourself or maybe have like a memoir project or something like that or a familial thing or
I know.
something?
I don't know. Yeah, maybe try it out, see how it feels. You never know until you're trying, too. I don't know. You're a Scorpio, like yeah, but you write about yourself a little bit too.
I do. Yeah, I my like I said, my sun is in the bounds of Mercury, so to
Yeah.
kind of do that solar thing, I gotta like I've always just writing was an outlet for that.
Mhm.
Um um yeah, I think and for me like from how I was trained, I think like the self-disclosure with not to be like navel gazing or something as they say, but in order to um humanize like the practitioner like as a mode of like humility in a sense, like as a mode of like I'm not just like a disembodied like
Yeah.
voice of like authority in a sense, like I'm like this is like a lived person like talking and writing through these things and how they hit and like constellate, you know what I mean? And I think that's like a praxis of mine that I try and maintain while yeah, and at the same and then, you know, yeah, white supremacy culture. I mean, I feel like I write because of it. Like I'm writing in response, or I'm writing to like work through it, to take it down, to critique it. Like absolutely. That's like um, you know, I think about the writer's role in the revolution, like often in that sense, or that. That answers the question.
Hope it does. And I think that's all the questions that we got. Which I mean, I'm so excited about this book. Yeah, I think everyone should buy it. You know, read it and use it. Like keep using it in your tarot practice. And then even if you're not pulling cards and you're just listening for archetypes, which I know a lot of people reference tarot that way too.
Mm.
And then I'm gonna yeah, because of time, I'm gonna give the mic back to ER, who I think has actually get the book.
Yeah, thank you both so much. This was so great. I do want to see if either of y'all have book recs for augury or I can never pronounce that word, or ornithomancy, since someone did ask in the chat. Do y'all know any books on that? Because I don't off the top of my head. As a bookseller, I was like, ooh, I don't actually know. But maybe you know,
Uh,
Christopher.
Not directly on I'm trying to find a book. Not directly on like specifically only or ornithomancy, which I'm like which is the augury, right, with the birds.
Yes.
Erica Buenaflor, who did blurb a little bit or like an endorsement for the book as well, who has books on curanderismo, has a book on animal relations. So she covers a bit of like some birds in there. It's not exclusive to that, but I would love more resources and text as well on it. Like, please also send them to me.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. So we there's no magic book yet on that, but maybe that's someone's field. So if you're out there watching, book needs to be written. Folks who would like to buy Red Tarot, you can click the teal button at the bottom center of the screen. It really does help us when you buy your event books from us. So thank you. And if you would like to buy Alice's book, you can click the link that I just put in the chat. It is a wonderful guide. I really am envisioning like a 2-book set because they just are very cute together. They look good. They look like circles. There's a lot happening. So we would love for you to get both of them. We also would love for you to recommend them to your public library. So increase the access to other people. Maybe buy one for your academic institution so that other people could have access. That would be awesome. So, but it is always a really great thing to do for authors to request that your local public library carry their book. It helps a lot. So if you're not able to buy a book tonight, no worries. Do that little bit of activism, and that will help Christopher get their book more out in the world. So do either of y'all have any upcoming events or projects or activities that you want to shout out before we go?
I have an event. I have a couple more dates on like this, this book promo tour that I've got going on. I will be next week, so it's kind of exclusive to everyone here, but like opening my tarot course thresholds for enrollment. And so if you kind of subscribe to my Substack or go to my website, which it's linked there, you can get like a free intro tarot course and sign up and learn more and whatnot. And like, it's so cool to now have a text like to teach, you know what I mean? Like, it's very cool. So if you want to kind of learn more and stay tuned, and yeah, I'll be in Canada. I'll be in the Bay Area in May at CIAS, so sometime. So definitely, like I said, try and stay connected, stay tuned if you want to just be up to date with like the most current events. What do you got, Ace?
I'm excited about this tarot course with your book. Yeah. I'm relaxed right now, like not much going on. I'm gonna do a little workshop if people are interested about You're the Dragons here. So just a little writing, a little research in collaboration with 2 other people. So Mish Ling and then NBJZ, a little Qigong as well with dragon related. Yeah.
Very cool. So
Very cool.
I dropped both of their websites in the chat. So be sure to follow Christopher's Substack and stay tuned so that you can get involved. Thank you both so much for all of your contributions to our communities. You both have taught so many people so many skills and ways of looking and seeing and being. So it means a lot that we get to host you virtually. And get to help you celebrate, Christopher, this big achievement. Like we said, birthing your book into the world, it's really special. We always take it really seriously and are honored. So thank you very much.
Likewise. Thank you both so much. Thank you so much for hosting me, and thank you, Ace, so much for your work and for being in conversation and celebrating my book, baby. Yay. Cheers. I have a Pisces with an Aquarius moon.
Love it. It. Well, y'all stay safe and well. Thanks to everybody watching, and we'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.